Hey, I'm Evelyn.
And I'm Robert.
And we're talking about it.
So what we doing today, Ev?
We are doing another bonus episode.
Yay!
So we're going to be doing a bonus episode on a couple of our favorite songs from The Hobbit and the book The Fellowship of the Ring. Tolkien puts a lot of songs in his books, and we're just going to talk about a couple of them. I'm going to do one from The Hobbit.
And I'm doing two different ones from Fellowship of the Ring.
All right, so just before we jump in, want to say there is a spoiler alert on this episode, including for myself, because both of the songs that Dad picked are going to be from further along than what we have read already. So if you are reading along with us, just know that this is going to be a little bit further in the future. So...
Yeah, so the first one I have, it's from the chapter called Strider in the Fellowship of the Ring. And it's known as All That Is Gold Does Not Glitter.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting is it's kind of a take on, there's an older poem, a traditional proverb, that all that glitters is not gold. So this is kind of reversing the meaning of that.
I have heard that before, yeah.
So this poem is first given in the letter that was left for Frodo by Gandalf in Bree. In that letter, it appears as part of a reminder to make sure that the quote-unquote Strider he meets is the real Strider. The poem appears in that context as a means of identifying who Strider is. Strider indeed later quotes the first two lines, not knowing the poem is in the letter, and this helps to confirm his identity.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Yeah, Bilbo himself recites the poem at the poem. Bilbo himself recites the poem. God, I can't say poem. I can't say poem. Bilbo himself recites the poem.
Just go with it. Poem.
Bilbo himself recites the verses at the Council of Elrond, where Boromir had expressed doubts about Strider claiming to be the heir of Isildur.
Cool. I totally know what that means.
The king.
Okay.
The heir of Isildur is the king that has been gone for a very long time.
Okay.
Right. So the first line is clearly a reworking, like I said, of that traditional proverb. The second line, perhaps one of the most famous lines of Tolkien's work, is in there as well. Refers to Aragorn's travels. The third and fourth lines concern Strider's heritage and what remains for that destiny. Remains a line describing Strider's identity. The blade that was broken refers to the blade that later gets reforged.
Well, why don't you go ahead and read it, and then we can talk about what it actually means.
Okay. All that is gold does not glitter, not all that who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither, deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes of fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be the blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king.
Okay.
So it's identifying who Strider really is.
Gotcha.
Okay. This sword was the symbol of kingship.
Okay.
Okay. And it was broken at the end of the Second Age. Now, in the book, it's only broken in two, but in the movie, we see that it's broken in many pieces.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and it's later reforged. The blade has engraved in it the designs of the 7 stars with the sun and the moon on it. And the blade is also known as the Flame of the West.
Huh. That's a nice name for a sword. All right.
Okay. All right. So, and I like it. I like this poem. This is one of the two I picked out of this book. The reason I like this poem is it really kind of starts the real adventure here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's the meeting of Strider, them getting to figure out who everyone is and start heading out for their first official stop.
Okay.
In their quest.
Gotcha. And yeah, like you said, not all who wander are lost. That's one of my favorite quotes from him.
And then, one last thing about the blade. The name Narsil means red and white flame. And those red and white flames refer to the sun and the moon.
Okay. Awesome. Well, the poem or the song that I picked is also very much telling of the adventure that is to come. I picked the song The Lonely Mountain from The Hobbit, which is actually in the very first chapter. And sometimes it's referred to as the Dwarf Song, Thorin's Song, the Misty Mountains, or more commonly, Far Over the Misty Mountains Cold, which is the first line of the song. Now, I'm not going to sing the entire thing, but I am going to do the first verse and then the last verse, because it's very repetitive in the way that it's worded, as well as it's repetitive within the context of The Hobbit itself. So I'll go ahead and read it first before talking about it. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day to seek the pale enchanted gold. Far over misty mountains grim, to dungeons deep and caverns dim, we must away ere break of day to win our harps and gold from him. So the entire song is actually made like a song within the story, because all the dwarves are apparently bards and they break out different instruments to just play the song. You've got Killian Philly on fiddles, Dori, Nori, and Ori on flutes, Bomber on the drums, Biffer and Bofer on clarinet, and Dwalin and Balin on violas, and then Thorin, the leader of the group, with his golden harp.
Gotcha.
So they straight up just break out the instruments. And this is not the only time they do this. Later on down the road at several other rest stops, they can be heard playing music, and it's heavily implied that this is the song that they're singing. Now, the song itself is kind of hinted at being an old dwarvish song about the fall of the Durin folk from the Misty Mountains, where they are kicked out by the dragon Smog, who takes over their mountain and all their gold and everything. And it's kind of a almost prophecy about the adventure that they must go on to get their gold back. That's the hymn that they refer to at the very end of the song, is the dragon.
Okay.
So the entire song itself is very prophetic. And something that I love is that it's at the beginning of The Hobbit, and it kind of lays out this whole adventuring tone, but it does the same for Bilbo. In the text, it says it even awakens the Tookish side of Bilbo.
Gotcha.
Prior to this, Bilbo is often quiet and calm and very Baggins-like in nature. But this really awakens the Tookish in him, and it also shows that he becomes more adventurous and bold as his story goes along. And then just something I found really interesting is that for the movie The Hobbit, they actually changed the lyrics completely. They have 2 stanzas of it only. They changed the last line of the first one to find our long forgotten gold. And then the second stanza is more of the actual dragon attack in a flashback rather than the history of the dwarves and the fighting itself.
Okay.
So that's just something I found interesting, is that they dramatically changed the song for the movie. And that's what I have for mine.
Okay. Well, my second one, it's found in the chapter The Mere of Gladriel.
Okay.
It's called When the Evening in the Shire Was Grey. It was written by Frodo Baggins, and it's about Gandalf's meeting with the Balrog.
Okay.
Okay?
Who's that again?
It's a big, nasty monster made of earth and fire.
That's the thing where he goes, "You shall not pass"?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Keep going.
I was trying not to use that spoiler.
Well, I need context. Okay.
Okay. So, when evening in the Shire was grey, his footsteps on the hill were heard. Before the dawn he went away, on journey long without a word. From wilder land to western shore, from northern waste to southern hill, through dragon lair and hidden door, and darkling woods he walked at will. With dwarf and hobbit, elves and men, with mortal and immortal folk, with birds on bough and beast in den, and their own secret tongues he spoke. A deadly sword, a healing hand, a back that bent beneath his load, a trumpet voice, a burning brand, a weary pilgrim on the road. A lord of wisdom, throne he sat, swift in anger, quick to laugh, an old man in a battered hat, who leaned upon a thorny staff. He stood upon the bridge alone, and fire and shadow both defied. His staff was broken on the stone, and Khazad-dûm his wisdom died. Now, that's all kind of dark.
It is.
So, Sam, being Sam, has to talk about some good things about Gandalf.
Okay.
So he refers back to the birthday parties.
Okay.
The finest rockets ever seen, they burst in stars of blue and green, or after thunder golden showers came falling like a rain of flowers. So again, this is, Sam adding to this poem to lift the spirits of everybody.
Okay.
So now this deadly sword, my second one about swords, the second sword that we talk about here, the deadly sword is Glamdril. It's also known as foe hammer, and the orcs call it beater.
Is that the sword that Gandalf got in The Hobbit?
That's the one he got at the orcs camp, yes.
Okay, yeah.
And this is the one he has with him throughout the adventures.
Oh, so he still has it.
He still has it.
Cool.
Right. So, and that bridge refers to the bridge in Khazad-dûm.
Gotcha.
So, and also, just in case you don't know, maybe this might be just a touch of a spoiler, when Gandalf found this sword, this is where Bilbo found the short blade sting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I found it familiar, is that's where Bilbo found Sting. Because they both grabbed swords from it. And then they buried the treasure and came back on their way after the adventure.
Yeah, you don't want to carry hundreds of pounds of gold on your back to an adventure.
I think it's brilliant. But we'll talk about that more when we talk about The Hobbit.
Even though we don't do that when we play D&D.
Which we should.
Because they didn't have a bag of holding to put it all in.
My group doesn't have a bag of holding. We do get very strict about our weight limits, but we mostly just take the small stuff, except for the time that I insisted on carrying a dragon skull around, and I gave all my stuff to everyone else so I could just keep carrying it around.
Okay then.
You lick the skull, you got an acid trip. It was great.
Okay then.
D&D. All right.
Which, by the way, is very much, from the very beginnings, influenced by The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about before.
And so,
halflings are basically hobbits.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I like playing halflings.
Right, because Gary Gygax, obviously was a nerd.
Well, you think? For those who don't know, he's the one that made D&D.
Yes. So, maybe we can do a sidebar.
Yeah.
Another sidebar bonus episode. Just a little quickie thing.
That could be fun.
So, all right, but that's all I have.
Those were interesting, though.
Yeah, so here is an invitation. We would love to hear from you and tell us what your favorite verses or poems or songs from Tolkien's work, and share it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Find us on all of our social media and stuff, which you'll hear in the post-production part, and tell us what you think, which songs really speak to you. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also, the original plan was these bonus episodes were going to be available for the Patreon members.
Right.
But we feel like in this time of needing something to help take our minds and our hearts off of what is going on around the COVID-19 virus, we wanted to make these available to everyone.
Right. Moving forward, once this pandemic is finally over, we are going to be doing less bonus content for the public and more for just the Patreons. But for now, we just want to spread the joy.
Amen.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next time. Bye. I was Evelyn.
And I was Robert.
And we're talking about it.
Thank you so much for listening. I have been Robert.
And I have been Evelyn.
Podcasters are Robert and Evelyn Lewis.
Edited by Evelyn Lewis.
Produced by Robert Lewis, Evelyn Lewis, and the comic Canary.
Music provided by Ben Sound. Link in the description.
Support us on Patreon at Token About It Podcast.
And a very special shout out to our very first patron, Regina. Hi! Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Tolkien About It.
And Twitter at Token Pod.
Thank you all again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.